Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the Football Pod. Éamonn is with myself and Rory to look back on 4 of the Allianz League. Just to bring you through the results of the weekend: Galway 21 points, Donegal 14 points, Kerry 313, Tyrone 213, Dublin 320, Derry 212 and Armagh 117, Mayo 117, which means it's a fairly crowded looking Division 1 table. Galway on top on 7, Donegal and Dublin both on 6, Kerry on 4, Armagh and Mayo on 3, Tyrone on 2 points, and Derry looking very vulnerable at the bottom of the table on just 1 point. Let's start with that big clash of the top of the table then, Éamonn. Galway, I guess, unbeaten, still looking... I think probably we felt that maybe Galway and Donegal were the 2 most impressive sides in the league so far. Did Galway kind of head the bill now based on what you saw at the weekend?
Yeah, they're going well, Jacqui. Look, I think we've said it before that for Galway, they've huge experience built up over the last couple of years now, and the key for them is trying to keep as many of their big players fit and avoiding injury, because they were decimated with injuries last year, and they still, ended up where they ended up. So I think they look to be enjoying their football. Shane Welch especially is personification of that. He's really at the top of his game, and there's a lot being made that the new rules are possibly helping him, which they possibly are, but he looks very fit. He's obviously injury free. He's playing with a bit of swagger and joy, and he's kicking great scores, and I know he's probably top of the 2-pointer charts, but some of the quality of the scores he got yesterday, he got one in the first half where he showed that he can handle that Saltill Gale probably better than anyone else, where he put it about 20 yards outside the post and drew it back in, and then he kicked a great score in the second half into the teeth of the wind as well off his left side. So yeah, it was a great win. Now I suppose the caveat is there from the Donegal perspective of Michael Murphy, Patrick McBrearty and Ryan McHugh all being rested. The fact they're on 6 points, the fact they're playing Derry a week after in the Ulster Championship, a week after the league final. So those things are starting to emerge a bit as well. But Galway going very well and, playing great football. And like I said, they just have a look of a seasoned team at the moment, and they know how to get the job done on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's the sense I had, Rory. Éamonn is absolutely right. Donegal weren't playing with a full deck, but I think it's the consistency of what Galway are doing week on week that's impressive. You talked about the likes of Shane Walsh. This is not the first week we've seen him doing that. They look like they've adapted really well to the new rules. They're finding a rhythm. Yes, it's early in the season, but I still think for my money, they've definitely been the one to watch.
They have, and I think it's a great credit to them. The year after, we've a little bit of experience of losing All-Ireland finals in Cork, and the year after can be a very, very taxing and a very challenging year for the team, the management, to sort of rise it again. It was a very similar trajectory, I suppose, to the Cork team back in the late noughties, lost 07, 09 before getting over the line in 2010. Galway lose in 22 and 24, and who's to say that this year might be the year? I think they've started with all the right noises, and they just look like you always felt that they have the players to. Certainly, they have the personnel, they have the skills, they have the depth. The injuries look like they've cleared up. The flash players look like they're on song. And I think it's a huge credit to them that they didn't sort of sulk. They've kind of dusted themselves down and they've put themselves right back into contention. Now, again, this year, it looks like they've flushed that from, we'll say, the negatives of last season from their system. And there's no better way to do that than going out and winning football matches, which is what they've done so far. And I think they're in a very, very good shape. I think there's no harm in going out and trying to win the league now.
Yeah. And I think that'd be good for the group of players. There was one, I guess, it's a big talking point that has come from this game, Éamonn, given what we've seen Jim McGuinness saying. He called it farcical, the situation that happened, where, for anybody who didn't see it, obviously Matty Tierney got a red card. Then they had at 2 different points, two different players on black cards. So at one point, Galway were down to 13 players at two separate sections in that game. But because of the new rules, they were allowed then to not have to keep three players up. So they were able to just keep one player up the top and then still play with potentially what was the same amount of players again that Donegal were able to field. Jim McGuinness has come out quite strongly and said it's farcical. I suppose, what do you say to that, Éamonn, given that you're one of the people on the other side? This is an unintended consequence of what was going to happen, but can you understand his frustrations?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Look, it's emerged over the last couple of weeks, Jacqui. It happened in Salt Hill yesterday. I was above in Pomeroy to Kerry Tyrone game. Same thing happened towards the end of that game. It happened Tyrone Mayo last week as well. So it has happened, that I suppose it's like all these things. I think sometimes it's handy to know where the decision came from or what the idea behind it. And when we were thinking about it initially, it's obviously part of the three structure, and it was to avoid a double punishment. That was where it came from, where that if you got a black or red card, that the team that were getting the black or red card, that they would have the freedom to have their two players at either their defensive side or their offensive side. But the teams have exploited it, and they've used it very cleverly, where they've actually ended up having, when they're without the ball, they've defended with the maximum of 11. And when they've had the ball, they've attacked with the maximum of 11, and sometimes with the goalkeeper coming up as well. So even though that they've been down players, they've still been able to engineer the 12v11. So of course, when we meet up and we have our meeting, that's going to be one of the items that we're going to be discussing. It wasn't something I think we felt, even the first night I was above in Galway, that night Armagh did the same thing, where they attacked and they were leaving only two defenders back against three Galway forwards. And there was times that Galway, I felt, could have moved the ball quickly to exploit that, but they haven't done that. And teams haven't moved the ball, that if there's only one back against three forwards, if you're moving it from back to front fairly quickly, you could exploit it. We possibly thought that would have been the answer, and that's the way it would have played out, but that isn't the way it's playing out. And to be fair, if you're the team on the side and you've been the victim, where you've ended up having a red card awarded because one of your players was challenged in a certain way or whatever, you're going to want to have the benefit of that red card for your team. So yeah, of course, it's going to be something we're going to have to look at, and it is an unintended consequence. And look, that was always going to happen, and that's the reason that this year is an experimental year, and these kind of issues crop up. And that's the beauty of being able to trial it like this, that, by the time things are voted into the permanent rule book at the end of the year, whatever's accepted or what isn't, it will have been robustly tested and hopefully streamlined and improved. And these kind of glitches that emerge, we'll have a chance to try and fix them.
Are ye talking in real time when that's happening, Éamonn? I'm interested in that, because obviously we're all chatting and we're on podcasts. Everybody's chatting in the pub. They're saying, how are we going to fix this? But it's obvious to everybody to see. And I know obviously after round 5, you can come in, you can implement change and say, look, we're actually going to scrap this. But I'm interested, are you actually saying in real time, what about this? What about this? Or do you just wait and actually people will come to that meeting and say, what about this? And everybody offers suggestions, or how do you think it's going to work?
No, we're talking all the time, Jacqui. And look, we've a meeting every Monday evening. We've a meeting online. We've the online meetings weekly. Basically, we've one of those this evening, and we all catch up and we go through the games that we've been at and what we saw over the course of the weekend, and are there issues, are there things that are working well, and so on. As we're at matches, we're keeping in touch, that if there's things cropping up and there's issues, and then when we've the in-person meetings, we'd be prepped beforehand, to avoid any waste of time, basically. And when we're there, that we're really getting into the meat of things. So we're discussing it all the time. And I suppose for us as well, there's a couple of key elements that you're trying to balance knee jerk, which is the nature of sport. It's the nature of life. It's the nature of people, that if there's an issue, it has to be changed straight away. And if it's an issue in isolation, it doesn't have to be changed straight away. Of course, if it's an issue and there's a pattern, you have to look at it. That's where the game's intelligence unit data is important. that it helps us. It's important that we're at the matches and we're able to see what's going on. And then the feedback from players, managers, referees, supporters that are at the games, that's all important as well. So it all feeds into the process. And I suppose we've been anxious to say that from the start, that everyone is part of this. Everyone, from the person that's watching at home to the person that's playing to the referee, to obviously we're discussing it, trying to make the right decisions, and we pass it on up the line then for the final decisions to be made. But yeah, we're talking all the time. We'll have our meeting this evening, and we're on the phone to each other constantly. And yeah, it's healthy. But yeah, you wouldn't. I was at the game in Tyrone yesterday, and I got plenty of it. I got plenty of advice. I got plenty of advice, and couple of times there was little disagreements between the Kerry supporters and the Tyrone supporters about what should and shouldn't be happening with regard to the rules, and they were looking for me to referee it, and I was trying to watch the match. So that's all part of it.
Yeah, that's the thing though, Rory. Like, all of this is just informing what happens going forward. That's the point of the data. And this is going to be a very fluid process, and everybody has to be patient with it.
Very fluid. And like Éamonn mentioned there as well, all the different stakeholders, and from grassroots, supporters, referees, administrators, and players, coaches, everybody has a right to have an input and everybody has a view. And I think that's a good thing, because it adds to the democratic nature of it, and it'll obviously help people to make a better and informed decision when these rules do become finalised. I suppose education is key. I think if we can remember back, I think, again, Éamonn might correct me here if I'm wrong, but there was an issue in the Galway Mayo game. And I think there was a supporter came onto the field, and he approached the referee. There was nothing untoward happened, but he did approach the referee in what you might describe as a slightly aggressive manner. And it was basically about this rule. So he didn't know, from what we can gather, he didn't know that once a player was blackguarded or sent off, that didn't have to keep the two up. And that's what caused the angst and the frustration. So look, I think this is a mass period of discovery. There are going to be major teething problems with all of this as it all settles down. And like we see it, we had the club games obviously are started back, and we were playing a junior match there. I was out watching it last weekend, and I don't know if you saw the Connor sketches where he's making fun of the junior referee running up and down with the ball because he keeps getting abused and he keeps having to pull it for a 50-meter free, and that literally happened. We were sitting there. Is Connor Moore actually commentating on this or what? So look, I think it will all eventually settle down. I think the great thing is Gaelic football is a way better place. I mean, the flair now that we're starting to see, you saw David Clifford yesterday. He looks like reborn. We're seeing Shane Walsh. We're seeing Conor Callaghan coming on, kicking a 2-pointer. We're seeing these great players now playing the game that is going to really sell the sport to the next generation who will want to get in there. And I think if you take all of the rules as a suite and as a package, yes, there are going to be problems. Jim McGuinness has a point. But if you take it in the round, it's a good news story so far for me.
Yeah, agreed. No better story than seeing your stars shine, Éamonn, and you got to see Clifford, as Rory said. Do you know what I thought was fascinating after the game? The amount of children from Tyrone who were looking for his autograph. It was unbelievable. I mean, listen, this guy is the star of the game, no doubt about it. But just even watching him in full flight, 3 goals in a game, 3 points as well. But just to even be able to get him integrated back into the system and watching him playing in full flow, it must have been a sight to behold for a Kerry man, not least a football fan.
Yeah, no, it was. It was great to see him. And I just felt yesterday he had the space to thrive, and probably a big thing I felt even, watching him, I know him well, and I've been involved with him a good bit. Even it looked to me like a bit of the joy had gone out of him last year, the constantly having to chase his man back the field, because he knew and everyone else knew his man was only going sprinting up the field to pull him out of position, to burn his energy down. So he'd be out of shape. He'd be pulled out of shape in terms of where he was supposed to be on the pitch. And then when he get the ball, he'd be wrecked and he wouldn't have the energy to do what he was doing yesterday. Whereas he's getting the ball now in the offensive third. He has energy to go at his man and he has energy to make things happen. So it was very positive. And I mean, he's only back. He hasn't a huge pile of football played and he looked sharp. I watched him closely in the warm up. He was warming up quite near where I was standing yesterday and he looked really sharp. He just, everything about him, his handling, his skills, his movement, his agility, he looked good. And it transferred into the game then, and he got three. He hit the crossbar. Even Niall Morgan made another good save from him where he would have probably felt he should have scored. So, yeah, it was good. It was great to see. And like you said, there was fierce excitement. And also, by the way, at the other end, Derek Canavan came on after about 20 minutes and he didn't get as much of a supply, but he was similar. He was looking really threatening as well, and he got a great goal, and he obviously was pulled down for the penalty. So Rory listed off a couple of the other, those inside forwards. So hopefully we're going to see loads of them. We saw Chris Jones earlier on in the league for Cork as well, Owen Frayne, Jordan Morris for me. So, the list goes on. We're getting to see Ryan O'Donoghue, who played very well on Saturday night for Mayo. We're getting to see those inside forwards with a bit of room to express themselves again, which is great.
Yeah, you saw Con O'Callaghan up in the close and personal, Rory. I know you were in Croke Park on Saturday as well, and I think even just for young Dublin kids who might have watched him going on a run with Coola, to see him back in the fold as well and scoring freely, and Dublin looking like they're starting to find some sort of a pattern, albeit losing Bugler is huge, but I do think they looked like they were finding a bit more flow at the weekend.
Yeah, loads of really good positives for Dublin, but a couple of major negatives, not necessarily in a playing sense, but off, like I think Lee Gannon might be gone again for
I
the
heard
season.
Desi saying we might get him back at the end of the season, which made me think it's maybe not a full tear, but like not good
blow.
news.
And it's terrible for the fella because he had only just returned from a very serious injury. You obviously had Bugler going off, who probably Dublin's best player in the opening rounds of the league and was on fire on Saturday night. But they're the negatives, I suppose, from a Dublin perspective, but loads of positives. I mean, Éamonn you would have loved it. The goalkeeper nearly got caught out with one of his roving moves up the field. I think they played an outfield player in goal for Derry on Saturday night, and he very, very nearly got caught out. The goal was disallowed for a square ball. It was rightly a square ball as well, in fairness. Derry themselves had a fantastic goal chance when they were 6-3 up. And it came back off the post after a bit of a scramble inside in the goal mouth. But then Dublin went, I think they scored, was it 110 without reply? And just literally, like, Scully got, again, another contender for early goal of the season. Dublin just didn't really look back after that. And like, when you have Evan Comerford kicking points from play, you definitely know that Dublin are on song, because is that the first time we've ever seen a Dublin goalkeeper score from play? I hazard a guess it probably is. But yeah, like, I think overall, considering, look, they've obviously lost who they've lost. It doesn't look like John Small is going to be back either. He talked out with his club, obviously, in the first round of the league a couple of weeks ago. Now, what you can read from that, you wouldn't necessarily know. Played really well, actually, for Ballymun-Kickhams. They beat Thomas Davis in the first round for them. So they've lost who they've lost. But, like, I thought Theo Clancy was amazing. I mean, no, he started, I think, on Shane McGuigan. He then shifted over, I think, onto Cassidy. But, like, he's almost like Rory O'Carroll reincarnated again. Tall, rangy, unbelievably athletic, really smart, really good positional sense, can probably play here from behind and in front. He's, such a young player as well. A brilliant prospect at full back, which is an extremely hard position to fill and is going to become more difficult, particularly with these new rules, because there's nowhere to hide anymore. But I think a lot of young players still really finding their feet, and Dublin are on a roll.
Yeah, I heard Desi Farrell's comments afterwards, Eamon, and what he talked about was opportunity. I think he said it like 5 or 6 times. He was saying, yes, we've lost a lot of leaders, and maybe he wants to move away from the narrative as well. He doesn't want to be asked about Brian Fenton anymore. He doesn't want to be asked about James McCarthy. He wants to talk about the likes of Bugler and these kind of people. And he is saying they are learning so much. And it does seem to me like maybe he's in better shape than he thought he might be at this stage.
Yeah, you see the thing with the opportunity, Jacqui, from Desi's point of view, it's only good that when the players take it.
Yeah.
It's one part giving them the opportunity, and some of those lads that are really grasping it now, they've got opportunities the last couple of seasons and it hasn't quite worked out for them. Whereas, possibly maybe with some of those leaders gone out of the way, that there's a different dynamic in the dressing room and that they're feeling like they have to step up and they have to contribute and it's suiting them. But he's going to be delighted. They're playing great football. I only saw the highlights. I didn't see the full game on Saturday night, but they look to be kicking the ball a bit more. They definitely look to be kicking the ball in the final third a bit more. They're young, they're hungry, they're athletic. Even when Derry got the goal, one of the goals into Hill 16, one of the backs had his hands up in his head. He was disgusted that the goal was conceded. It was Rogers' goal, actually.
Rogers' goal, yeah.
And you could just see that it meant a lot to them. It meant the playing meant a lot to them, and even conceding the goal was really annoying them. So they're in great place. They're in good shape. I agree with Rory. Theo Clancy is serious, and he's going to be a serious player. And these fellas are there's possibly just a bit of space around the setup for them to develop now and to really go at it. Whereas maybe in the past they always felt that, look, when the big boys are around, I'm not going to be on the team, or I might be just a bit part player, whereas this is a real opportunity for me now. And like I said, that's a brilliant position for Desi to be in, that he's given all these players opportunities, but they're really taking them.
Completely different scenario for Derry, because you look at them now, Eamon, with 1 point from 4 games. And at this stage now, they've got to go to Donegal, then they're at home to Mayo, and they're away to Armagh in the last 3 games. I mean, it looks already at this stage it's going to take a miracle for them to survive. So if you're in their shoes, what are you doing with these last 3 games? Where's your head at? Are you thinking we can still scramble out of this?
Oh, you are, absolutely, because that Donegal game, is probably going to be another shadow boxing game because of the champion.
Yeah.
They're playing each other in the first round of the championship, so there's 2 points up for grabs there. But they've been a small bit unlucky. I mean, Kerry, got the goals late in the game above that night. Now they were disappointed, I know, at the performance against Dublin the last night.
They played really well for the first 20 minutes, Éamonn, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, and I just think that the way they'll be looking at it, look, is they are going to be still trying to stay up, but they're going to be thinking about the first round of the Ulster Championship, and they're just going to be trying to get everyone fit and get their key players, in form and ready to go. Probably a big decision that he's going to have to make is with regard to the goalkeeper, is with regard to McNichol, if he's going to stick with him. He has been contributing going out the field. Now, to be fair to the Dublin goals the last night, not sure even if your best shot stopper wasn't goals, he would have saved any of them. 2 of them just went in under the crossbar. They were awkward. They were kind of awkward shots, even if you were a really brilliant goalie. So that's probably a big decision he's going to have to make. But Derry have the players, and they're probably a small bit vulnerable at the moment in terms of the way last season went for them, and just that they're not getting the wins that give the confidence. But I wouldn't be writing them off big picture wise at all. I think they have a lot of quality, and Paddy Tally's a lot of experience as well. And look, Tyrone are probably in a similar kind of a situation where they're really in the relegation conversation. But again, even if they're relegated, when it comes to the big picture, they'll be fine, and they'll be thereabouts. So disappointing for Derry at the moment, but I wouldn't be writing them off.
Yeah. And Jacqui, like you have to bear in mind, they won the league last year, and we all saw what happened afterwards in the championship. And like, if you asked somebody who won the league any year, they'll struggle for a second or two to actually remember, because we all love the league, but when the league is over, no one cares about it. So I think from a Derry's perspective, their focus will be championship. So even if they do get relegated, I'm not entirely sure if there's a huge difference between the top 10 teams, let's say, in the country at the minute. So I like the chances are, no, it was a big surprise. Obviously, the weekend just gone, Meath overturning Roscommon. I wouldn't imagine were many would have predicted that particular result. And fair play to Meath, and they look like they've really turned a corner. And it would be fantastic to see a county like that really make a big comeback. And who knows, we might have a Leinster Championship. But I think, like, from Derry's perspective, like going down, it's not the end of the world. And ultimately, what are you going to be judged on? You're going to be judged on your championship performances. That's the thing they didn't get right last year. And that's the thing that they've got to really try and rectify for this one.
Yeah. Would the feeling be the same in Mayo if they were to get relegated, Éamonn? Because they have managed to turn the wheel around a little bit, and maybe there's a small bit more optimism, because the last couple of weeks, it did seem like the dreary drum was being sounded up there.
It did. The one thing they're missing is just a bit of consistency. Jacqui, we spoke earlier about Galway and their kind of seasoned consistency getting the job done, whereas Mayo have been the opposite of that. They've been, in a lot of their games, it's been real Jekyll and Hyde stuff where you know, even the last night, the first half, they were making a lot of the same errors that you'd associate with them, kicking wides that you'd be expecting them to get, dropping the ball short. And then they exploded in the second half, and they really they should have won the game at the end, and they'd be probably disappointed they didn't win it. But, you know, they're getting new guys in. David Neary has been very impressive during the course of the league, and they're getting Aidan O'Shea back, and he looks to be in good form. Ryan O'Donoghue is starting to find his form. So it changes so quick, like, especially in league. You know that, I mean, Kerry are going up there now next Saturday, which is tough game again, very hard to call from either side. Whoever wins that is in great shape in terms of their Division 1 status. If Mayo were to lose that, they're back in a relegation conversation again, and you know the whole thing changes again. So again, it's that knee-jerk thing we were talking about earlier on, but I think they'll be happy enough. With the last couple of weekends, they got a result against Tyrone rather than a huge performance, but they got a really good performance in the second half of the game against Armagh the last night. So they started to look a bit more like themselves. But wins make life easy, Jacqui, and if they get a win next weekend, they'll be in good place again.
And they played all right on the very first night out against Dublin in Croke Park. Only lost by 2, I think, 117-115. As Éamonn mentioned, the defeat, the win against Tyrone was one of those ones that you just have to grind out. But like that will give them huge confidence. I suppose the one that will annoy them, Jacqui, really is the trouncing they took from Galway on their own patch. And
10 points doesn't happen often.
Yeah, like that was a bit of a tonkin. But look, Galway, as we said, they're the 2-point experts at this stage, which is actually, it's an interesting aspect. I don't see Kerry utilising that option as much as I thought I would, Éamonn.
Yes, Rory. I'm saving it for the Cork fellas and the ones who joined you.
Keeping it under wraps.
Yeah, exactly. People could get an awful hiding if you find a way to use it. Fair play. All right. Well, listen, we'll leave the football there. But Éamonn, as always, thanks for all your contributions. And I'd say keep the phone on now. You could be busy over the next week, you know?
Okay. Thanks, Jacqui.
Thanks a million. Talk to you soon. And everybody else, enjoy your week. And we'll be back on Thursday to look ahead to next week's action. Talk to you then.
Lead by a point, and there's the whistle, it's over.